Who is really behind all the non-stop terrorism? Who really rules the world? The black nobility and the ruling houses of northern Italy. The Rothschilds and Rockefellers are low-level fronts, the black nobility holds the key to temporal power. TMR. The Millennium Report. The true power behind both the Rockefeller and Rothschild families. And B. If this expose appears overly complicated and indecipherable, that's because it only reflects the opacity and complexity associated with the black nobility. What follows is an excerpt from the preceding link, that the Venetian power will soon dump Britain as it moves its financial hub, City of London, Wall Street, into Dubai, the political power into Iraq and the spiritual power into the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem, the international city of the new Middle East. While almost everyone knows that governments in Italy come and go with the wind, few understand that this ongoing predicament is by purposeful design. Not only has Italy had at least 63 governments since 1946, nothing but governmental chaos and political pandemonium reigned during each successive term. This unfortunate country even has a difficult time with regular trash collection throughout its major cities. As recently as May of 2017. Of course, that engineered plight is also by the deliberate intention of the sowers of chaos known as the black nobility. Trash-strewn Rome besieged by wild boars, man dies in tragedy, report, May 17, 2017, because the elite ruling families of the North have controlled the Italian peninsula since the times of Marco Polo, national stability and/or disorder can only come from them. Sometimes known as the original black nobility, which is distinguished from the much more recent black aristocracy of 1870. These extremely wealthy families of banking and commerce have dominated the cities of Venice, Genoa, Milan, Turin, Verona, Bologna and Florence since the late 13th century. These powerful clans were the beneficiaries of the greatest trade and commerce relationship, theretofore, between the East and the West that was initiated by the travels of Marco Polo. The unprecedented accumulation of wealth by the black nobility had its roots in the commercial ventures to the east made by Marco Polo of Venice in the 13th century. He was used to establish the largest export-import business in world history. And, yes, it grew to be the most profitable business venture of all time, as it effectuated the greatest transfer of wealth the planet has ever seen. This highly efficient enterprise was responsible for the most successful exchange of goods, services and resources from east to west, and vice versa, ever to have occurred. And, it continues up to this very day, with the very same families in firm control. With this essential background, it will be much easier to correctly understand just how rich the black nobility has become since the end of the 13th century. Obviously they were way ahead in wealth accumulation and accrual of worldly power by the time the Meyer-Amschel Rothschild hit the banking scene in the second half of the 18th century in Germany. Although known to but very few insiders, it was the Jewish banking families associated with the black nobility who set up the Rothschild empire in the first place. In this way they could use the red shield to hide behind, which the black nobility has done for 2.5 centuries. Caveat: it's extremely difficult to properly tease out all of the different black nobility families and bloodlines who dominated Europe back then, and who dominate the world today. Their labyrinthine interrelationships are particularly hard to determine with any degree of accuracy. That's because their absolute power and control is sustained by utter secrecy and stealth. Even Niccolò Machiavelli learned all the family secrets that he wrote in The Prince by watching their diabolical plots and convoluted machinations. Having lived in 16th-century Florence when the House of Medici led the largest bank in Europe, and through strategic marriage alliances, joined many of Europe's royal families, Machiavelli observed in real time the rapid expansion of the black nobility throughout the European continent and beyond. Ordo Abjao, this is where the previously mentioned planned chaos comes in, especially as it is on continual display by so many changing Italian governments. For the power families of the black nobility are the original purveyors of Ordo Abjao. It's only by methodically sowing seeds of such chaos, read terrorism, that they are able to rule Italy and the Vatican, and, therefore, the rest of the world. Their unique mode of creating order from chaos can be seen everywhere on planet Earth. Where is their handiwork not apparent in 2017? In light of this crucial knowledge, terrorism equals chaos equals black nobility. Those who really want to know who rules the world today can now begin to grasp the following elusive and carefully hidden truths. As this expose states, Britain, actually the city of London, is referred to as the New Venice. Just as Venice was the most powerful and wealthy of all the northern Italian cities, London is the most influential today where it concerns global banking and finance. In other words, the black nobility completely rules over Great Britain by way of controlling the financial district in the City of London, as well as the Crown Temple. Factoid: well before the East India Company was officially incorporated on December 31, 1600 in Great Britain, there were corporate entities established in northern Italy which enjoyed extraordinary commercial success and worldwide reach. As a matter of historical fact, it can be said that the birthplace of the modern corporation was the various black nobility-dominated cities of northern Italy. For example, the Banca Monte dei Paschi di Siena was founded in 1472 in Siena, Italy and is currently the world's oldest surviving bank. Corporate charters were also issued to companies in Venice, Genoa and Verona as early as the late 1400s in the wake of Marco Polo's exploits in the Far East. For it is through the business entity known as the corporation by which the black nobility effectively runs the world. A century of unrelenting globalization has transformed the global marketplace into a vast and monolithic network of public corporations, each of which can be easily controlled. How simple is it for the hidden owners of every publicly traded corporation to compel the boards of directors to implement the black nobility's agenda? Mafia and terrorism. It's also important to note that the original Mafia was made up of powerful northern Italian clans which functioned as the enforcement arm of the black nobility. Were it not for this rich man's mafia, it would have been much more challenging to maintain their ascendancy in the Italian, European and global power structures. Of course, the mafia's primary weapon against all enemies, perceived or otherwise, was and is terrorism. The central organizing principle of the mafia has always been the strategic use of terrorism and tactical staging of terrorist attacks. The purposeful generation of fear is the means by which the mafia organization maintains internal discipline, as it is also the primary means by which societies everywhere are strictly controlled. At the very core of the mafia's command and control structure is the consigliere. He is the advisor and chief of staff to the mob boss who is responsible for overseeing the waves of terrors that coerce the local business owners and rich families to pay for the now ubiquitous protection racket. Once this community-wide network of extortion and bribery is firmly established, all the other criminal activity is easily foisted on the local people. Loan sharking, drug dealing, Gambling, prostitution, human trafficking, gun running and other crimes quickly become a part of the fabric of society. After most of the once innocent people eat their own piece of the criminal pie, they inevitably become susceptible to blackmail and other types of hush money schemes. What very few historical researchers and geopolitical analysts understand is that this same model of control by terrorism was adopted by the corporate sector at its very inception. It has likewise been utilized by governments large and small since time immemorial. More significantly, it has become the standard operating principle of the New World Order ruling cabal which seeks to foist a one-world government upon the entire planetary civilization. Key point: MAFIA stands for Mazzini, Autorisa, Furti, Incendi, and Avvelenamenti. Italian names that end in I are often from north of Rome, that is Venice, Genoa, Milan, Verona, Florence and Turin. The original MAFIA is truly one of the world's first organized terrorist organizations. Even NATO named their premier terror operation Operation Gladio, which is headquartered in Rome. Now frequently referred to as the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization, this warmongering institution is the most feared military machine the world has ever known. And it's completely controlled by the black nobility via the Committee of 300 and several other secret societies and clandestine organizations. 1. Clearly, terrorism has become a universal scourge in the third millennium. There is no continent or nation, state or province, city or village that is immune to its destructive and deadly consequences. Each day brings more evidence that every terror attack has been conceived and coordinated by the very same group of intelligence agencies and secret services. Just like NATO is but a cat's paw of the black nobility, so is the U.S. intelligence community, for example CIA, NSA, DIA, FBI, along with the Israeli, British, French, German, Italian, and many others. Many have surmised that it is the Roman Catholic Church, and especially the Jesuits, who really rule the world. Yes, the Church has played a vital role in the colonization and command of the planet, as have the Jesuits in the ironclad control of most nation-states. However, this story is much more complicated and profoundly misunderstood even by the most astute investigators. Just like the Mafia, the Church and the Society of Jesus were both taken over the very day that they were formed. Special note: within the firmament of Roman Catholicism, Jesuitism occupies its very own universe. As a matter of fact, there is no other denomination that is as ultra-liberal, intellectually oriented and transparently militant as the Jesuits. By all outward appearances, the Society of Jesus does not even resemble a holy order, much less a religious organization. That's because they aren't. This begs the questions: who are these prelates in black business suits? Are they the original men in black? The aforementioned black nobility of Venice, Genoa and Milan were not Roman Catholic per se. They were primarily Credo-Jewish merchants and their Jewish bankers, who were the richest merchants and bankers, respectively, of northern Italy, who made their fortunes in the wake of Marco Polo's ventures to the Orient. They acquired their fortunes from what is known as the greatest transfer of wealth from east to west in human history. With the acquisition of such great wealth came the accumulation of great power. And, of course, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Much of that power was eventually lorded over and co-opted the Roman Catholic Church, which was also controlled by the black nobility. This specific period of church history is replete with outrageous scandals and institutionalized corruption, indicating how easily compromised it was during that era of rampant religious materialism. To underscore, While the Jesuits are frequently mentioned in the piece linked below, it's important to point out that the Society of Jesus was founded by Saint Ignatius of Loyola in Spain in 1540. Inigo López de Loyola was born into a family of Marrano Jews, perhaps the world's first appearance of organized crypto Jewry. The critical point here is not that the Jesuits are well known in certain quarters as being God's diplomats because they function as the real Department of State for the Vatican. The point is that the Roman Catholic papacy has been controlled by the Jesuits since they became the appointed military defenders of the faith. In spite of a self-imposed rule never to occupy the papacy, the Vatican is now headed by the former Jesuit Archbishop of Buenos Aires, Argentina. Like the many popes before him, Pope Francis wears the highly distinguishing skull cap, also called a kippah, or yarmulke, in Judaism. In other words, way before there were Jesuits running the show in Rome, there were. In view of these revelations, the $64,000 question ought to be, who is it, exactly, that is dictating to the black nobility? The answer to that question brings us much closer to understanding, who really rules the world. The Millennium Report, May 22, 2017. Author's note: for the uninitiated, piercing through the arcana of this purposefully obscured realm of worldly power can be an exhausting exercise in futility. However, were one to rigorously apply Occam's razor to the analysis, the truth will eventually be thrown into stark relief. For the trajectory of world power has always manifested down through the ages in the very same way. After the fall of Atlantis, there was ancient Egypt, which was followed Sumeria and then Persia. Next came the ancient Greek Empire conquered by Alexander the Great, which eventually gave way to the Roman Empire. With the collapse of the Holy Roman Empire, European kingdoms and empires dominated much of the world, starting with the French, then the Spanish, and ending with the British Empire, upon which the sun never set. Of course, the world now stands witness to the naked imperialism of US-UK empire, which is actually an economic union and military alliance known as the Sino-Anglo-American Axis. 3. The key point of this historical retrospective is that there is common thread that is fastidiously woven through the warp and woof of each these empires. To successfully pull on that thread is to unravel the mystery of who really rules the world. Editor's note: stay tuned for part 2 of this special series on the black nobility and the concealed power structure of the world. In the meantime, rereading William Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice might provide some penetrating insights into the backstory of the true origins of the notorious black nobility. So, too, will a fresh reading of his Romeo and Juliet, which was set in Verona, Italy. In his day, Shakespeare was famous for disseminating highly privileged information via his highly coded tragedies and comedies. His many classic works served as vehicles for transmitting secret knowledge to those who had the capacity to comprehend it.